We've really tried to plan for scale from day one. And there have definitely been some missteps along the way. And even, one small example, I was moving pretty quickly when I was setting up our first UPCs for our products and our cases and our master cases. And I made a little misstep in misnaming or misclassifying our inner cases as cases. Had to go back a little while later, and that changed some stuff, which had a whole downstream effect, having to notify partners, we're updating our global trade identification numbers because this is actually our case now, not the inner case. So as we scaled up with distributors, some of the things like that, slow down a little bit more when you can, just because something looks pretty straightforward. You want to make sure you check all those boxes and look at all those details.
Hello and welcome to the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US, a podcast in which we explore the mind-bending world of global supply chain, covering topics such as automation, innovation, unique identity, and more. I'm your co-host, Reed.
And I'm Liz.
And welcome to the show. Well, Liz, how much do you like chocolate?
I feel like that's a duh question because chocolate is a mainstay of how to stay healthy and sane in this world.
I have to say I totally agree. I actually had chocolate today at lunch. My wife has all different types of chocolate in the house, typically hidden. But yeah, I think I can't go the week without a piece of chocolate anyway. So today we have Graham Sorkin, who's one of the founders of the Functional Chocolate Company, and he's here to meet with us today and talk about small business and how they got started and some of the challenges they've run into and how being a small business is, you can be agile, but you also have to, plan for growth and scale and all of those things. So without any further ado, Graham, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. Great to chat with you.
Yeah, we're glad that you could spend the time with us. So before we jump into this, tell us a little bit about Functional Chocolate, how you got started, what the company does. I would encourage everyone to look you up on the internet because you have some really cool chocolate names. But tell us a little bit about the company and how you got started.
Yeah, absolutely. So our co-founder and formulator, Chris Peruzzi, was really the mad scientist behind the whole concept. And he's been in natural product development for 30 some odd years now. And he's a single dad with a teenage daughter. So he faced a unique challenge that a lot of single dads with teenage daughters have faced, which was helping her address PMS. And he knew exactly how to help her and what herbs and supplements would really help get her back in shape. But she doesn't like taking pills, and he wanted to do something different that was, easier and something special for her. So he took that formula that he knew would work so well and paired it with dark chocolate, and kind of light bulb went off. And, in hindsight, it seems like a no-brainer. Why wasn't chocolate for PMS a thing decades ago? So that was kind of the genesis of the whole brand. And it was such a hit that myself and Chris and our CEO, Nicole, got together a couple of years back and started to build out the company around that concept and built out a full line of products, everything from our women's health specific line. As we know, women are the top consumers of chocolate. So chocolate that addresses menopause, PMS, female libido, and then some things that affect everybody like sleep, energy, anxiety and stress, focus and productivity. So we've now got that full line. And as we like to say, chocolate does more than ever before.
That's awesome. I really wasn't expecting that from this question, but that is such a cool story in itself.
It really is. And it talks to like the whole sane part, right? You would never put like staying sane. We know that chocolate helps us stay sane, but it sounds like your product actually can help, right? With some of that, just using these natural herbs and things.
Exactly. It's so much more than just the chocolate. Chocolate's already a superfood. It's full of flavonols, antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, all sorts of good stuff. I mean, going back to the Aztecs have been, revering chocolate. But once you add these other nutraceuticals, vitamins, minerals, botanicals, it can do so much more. And it's a great delivery mechanism for those things instead of just taking a pill or drinking a tea.
That's so cool. When the three of you got together several years ago, what was the biggest challenge that you faced out of the gate, getting this off the ground, and how did you navigate that?
Yeah, really two sides. From the product development side, which is the part I'm really passionate about, making these things taste good. Some of these herbs, some of these ingredients are just not palatable. If you've ever had valerian root tea, you know what I'm talking about. And that's one of the key ingredients in our sleepy chocolate. So finding ways to either cover up or embrace the flavors in there and make sure that this is a product that both works but is something you actually enjoy eating was definitely a challenge. And then from the marketing side, we launched right at the beginning of COVID. We had this idea, really got off the ground in March 2020 as we were kind of departing some other projects, and really loved the idea and wanted to get into it. But, selling into retailers during lockdowns when we couldn't visit stores and it was just a very different model. So really having to get creative and just stick to it and just keep trying and overcome some of those initial rejections and just slow uptake. But we feel like we've moved pretty quickly in the last year and a half.
Awesome. So when you all started, what was your vision for the business? How did you strike the right balance between, retail and, direct to consumer, or were you thinking just we're going to do direct to consumer? Open us up a little bit behind the scenes as to the conversations you were having for your vision.
Yeah, well, obviously our vision, like every new business, was to take over the world and make billions of dollars. We really wanted to, create something that was going to be sustainable, was going to be a good product, was going to help people. And obviously, this is a team I've worked with. Nicole and Chris and myself have worked together through a few companies in the past and done some cool stuff together. So we saw this as another opportunity to really build something a little bit different that, could be something we really grow to a much bigger scale and turn into, a big successful operation. On that question of direct to consumer, we obviously want to address all channels to get our product out to customers. We initially thought we'd probably be 50-50 between direct to consumer through our website and then our wholesale and distributor channels. And we were kind of surprised because that wasn't really what happened. Going direct to consumer was a slower start than we thought. We thought, we'll throw a couple ads on Facebook and we'll just get, hundreds of orders a day. And it's a little trickier than that, especially with just a totally new product concept where education is a big part of it. And our wholesalers, though, working with a network of brokers in natural products and beauty and some of these other spaces, were excellent at getting that into stores. So that 50-50 we thought we'd start with was really more like 80-20 on the wholesaler side versus direct to consumer. So it's been a bit of a challenge as well, balancing the various channels, because obviously the margins on direct to consumer are much better than going through a distributor. We've started working with KeHE and UNFI for distribution, which is wonderful. And that opens thousands and thousands of potential doors to us. But of course, going through that 3-tier and then with the opening order discounts and free fills and all that, it's very, very tight margin opening all those doors. So a lot of balancing, how much can we actually afford to put into these low margin channels versus focusing on our direct to consumer opportunities.
It's interesting. One of the things that in the past few months, as business has started opening up and I've been able to get back and talking to people face to face, is they have been talking about the importance of that conversation with customers. So not just looking on a website. So to balance that, the distributors they have all of those people who can talk to so it's like hub and spoke, right? So it seems that has been working in the past, but then switching to where the margin is better for you. I mean, that's a big challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just really been finding that balance between our various channels. And of course, we want to do as much direct to consumer, and we love having that direct relationship and engagement with the customer, and being able to get that feedback is really invaluable. And really, as entrepreneurs, hearing directly from our customers is just heartwarming. Hearing that we changed somebody's day or helped solve a problem for them is just wonderful to hear. So we really like engaging with that channel, engaging through social channels and things like that. But obviously, we need to embrace every path to market that is available to us.
So just a clarification here, and I love that you gave us some transparency here, that you thought you were going to be D2C and you were just going to throw some stuff up there and then orders would start coming in. But if I heard you correctly, it was a lot more education involved a lot more marketing to put around that to get that going. Did I hear that correctly? And then I have a second part.
Yeah, absolutely. I think education, especially with an entirely new product concept, is really essential. And then understanding how our customers want to be approached with that. So to an extent, yes, we can just shout chocolate that helps with your PMS. And a number of customers are saying, oh, I need that. Yes. Where do I order? Thank you. But there's a lot of questions. And how does this work? Is this something that I can take regularly? How much do I need to eat? There's a lot of questions that come up with something that's just entirely new to consumers. So a lot of that we've handled through just more education, more blog posts, working with brand ambassadors, working with doctors and things like that can really help tell the story in a way that relates to different types of customers.
Awesome. Okay. That really helps me out and helps me understand that. And then you thought that you would be 80-20. I mean, you thought you'd be 50-50. You said that you were 80-20, with wholesale 80%, 20% D2C. Is that where you are today, or have you moved a little bit closer to that 50-50?
We've moved a bit closer. It's still weighted towards the wholesale channels heavily. But we're definitely trying to continue increasing that direct consumer. And a big part of that was our first year, we were pretty heavily focused on building out all of our direct consumer content and channels and websites and customer experience. So we said after the first year, okay, we did that for a year. Let's spend a little while really supporting our wholesale channels. So we spent the first quarter of this year just kind of putting direct to consumer on the back burner and said, okay, we're a very small team, so we can only do so many things at once. So let's work on supporting our retailers, creating new in-store assets, everything we can to increase sell-through and open new doors. And then after a quarter of that, we said, okay, now let's keep moving back and forth and kind of dividing resources best we can between those various channels.
Excellent.
It's really cool to hear how you're iterating. And I guess that takes me to my next question is that obviously you worked with GS1 US. That's how we know each other to get your business up and running. Can you tell us a little bit about what you learned along the way and how GS1 Standards played a part in that?
Yeah, so we really approached this business with the idea that even though we're starting out small, we are planning for enterprise scale. We very much intend for this to become, a very large national operation over the next few years. So we want to put the tools and resources and platforms in place from day one that will support that scale. So working with GS1 Standards and making sure that our very first product made did have a GTIN on it was important to us because we don't want to have to pivot halfway through. We want everything right from day one so that we're able to scale up because we're not in Whole Foods yet. They've got long category review cycles. We're working on that, but we don't want to have to pivot and change packaging or do anything extreme to be able to work with some of the largest retailers that we know we will work with. They are the place we feel that our product belongs. So we want to make sure we're ready for that.
So did you have a previous experience where you knew that these retailers required a UPC, global trade item number, to take on their shelves? Or did you learn that in your process of building your business? I think a lot of folks come in and like, well, how did they know that? And sometimes it's, well, we learned it through this process of building the business, or we learned it from prior experience.
For us, prior experience, I work with a great team of entrepreneurs, and we've built a few companies successfully in the past. So we've learned a lot of hard lessons along the way. And there were a lot of things that this time around we knew from day one how we want to do things. And that to where I was going previously, putting in those enterprise scale tools, whether that's making sure we've got QuickBooks and customer support through Zendesk and all of these great platforms in place, but also just making sure that, we are ready and we have everything dialed from the very beginning. So our packaging, our case packs, everything that our distributors require in terms of information and certifications and all of that we've been working on from the very beginning.
That's what I love about the world we live in today. Getting access to information is a bit easier. There's still like industry, quote unquote, secrets or trade secrets and things that happen, but the fundamental foundations. I meet with a lot of startup companies throughout the year. I mean, monthly we meet with startups, and it's funny for me. Like, I hear two things. One, we're a startup and we knew about retail, so we just went with GS1 Standards in the beginning because we knew, as to your point, plan for enterprise scale. And then I run into the others. They're like, oh man, the biggest lesson I learned was we started out D2C and never realized we had no intention of going into retail, but we had such good traction that, you know, Walgreens or CVS or Walmart or Target or, you know, Whole Foods or somebody wanted to pick us up and we were super excited, but then we missed the window of on shelving because we didn't have a UPC or a global trade item number. We had a barcode, but we didn't have a unique global trade item number that associated and could work in their systems. So knowing those two systems. Okay, so what's next for you all? Are you working with any retailers or partners? Do you have plans for a next level that you can share with us, or is it kind of status quo right now?
Oh, absolutely. We're going to take over the world with chocolate. So we actually, just last week, we got back from the National Confectioners Association Sweets and Snacks Expo in Chicago. And that was really incredible for us. We kind of saw that as our coming out party. We've been building and getting everything in place and getting the opportunity to get in front of, you know, tens of thousands of buyers and potential partners and customers was just wonderful for us. And we really felt like we stood out at that show, being kind of a supplement company at a candy trade show. Just the feedback was incredible. So lots of opportunities. Chris, my co-founder, got pulled into the power pitch session to pitch a bunch of buyers on stage, and some great opportunities came from that with a number of retailers, and just meeting with lots of different channels, you know, major retail, travel, convenience. I was really excited I got to meet with Alaska Airlines, trying to convince them to take our stress and anxiety chocolate to keep their travelers a little bit more mellowed out. So lots of opportunities there. And then just, you know, we recently finished onboarding with Kroger for their online channels, Vitacost, and all of the online platforms, which was huge for us and was also a huge undertaking. So onboarding with those types of major retail, there are a lot of requirements and a lot of things, both from having our UPCs to things like UL WorkSmart certifications, working with One World Sync, who I know you guys work closely with to make sure all of our product data is aligned and consistent across channels. So very excited to just start opening up with more of those major retailers.
Wow, that's fantastic. And congratulations on that event, you know, with the conference and the whole, you've been doing so much work, but it's funny you said it felt like it was a coming out moment for us. And it sounds like you had some really cool activities, you know, to build upon multiple channels there.
Absolutely. Very exciting. Very good feedback too. Just getting to really get in front of so many people at once with our concept.
That actually leads me to my next question, because that if your coming out party is now, where do you see, other than taking over the world and keeping everybody stress-free and anxiety-free, where do you see functional chocolate in 5 to 10 years? And other, you know, I'm assuming things like these trade shows are some of the avenues you're going to take, but can you just kind of share with us what you're thinking?
Yeah, really just continuing to grow the brand, opening new doors. We're also really excited about our product pipeline. We started out with 4 SKUs, then added 2 more, then 1 more. We've got another one we're getting ready to roll out later this summer, and then a whole couple of line extensions that will be next year. So we've got a great pipeline of products and really just taking this concept to new places and to just more and more customers, looking at some international opportunities and continuing to grow. Also partnerships. You know, I know some of the big confectionery companies, you know, are looking at this area now and have had some conversations. So we'll see where that ends up. But for now, the goal is just more products in more consumers' hands.
That's great. And we really do wish you continued success there. But I know our audience would love to know this. You know, what's 1 or 2 things that come to mind, you know, that you wish you knew when you got started that you had to learn along the way, right? You know, something that, you know, other businesses could benefit from, you know, like a misstep or a miscalculation that you might have had when you started all this.
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about how we've really tried to plan for scale from day one. And there have definitely been some missteps along the way. And even, you know, one small example, I was moving pretty quickly when I was setting up our first UPCs for our products and our cases and our master cases. And I made a little misstep in misnaming or misclassifying our inner cases as cases. Had to go back a little while later, and that changed some stuff, which had a whole downstream effect, having to notify partners, oh, we're updating our global trade identification numbers because this is actually our case now, not the inner case. So as we scaled up with distributors, some of the things like that, slow down a little bit more when you can, just because something looks pretty straightforward. You want to make sure you check all those boxes and look at all those details. I know GS1 provides a lot of resources and training on making sure you set things up the right way. And I moved too quickly and didn't pay enough attention to some of that, which is, wasn't in any way a fatal issue, but it's a little bit embarrassing to have to go back and say, hey, actually, I know we just gave you all of these numbers and set things up this way, but actually throw those all out, use these instead. And that did kind of come up right in the middle of onboarding with Kroger. So it was a little bit of a slight delay and just not the best look to have to go back and make corrections like that. So as much as you can plan for scale and plan for putting those things in place, you just don't quite know what hiccups are going to come up 6 months down the line from what you thought you were setting up correctly for that at the very beginning.
Yeah, human error. We're flawed. We're flawed people. So I appreciate that. Is there anything else that comes to mind, or was that the biggest one that you all hit?
Just there have been a lot of challenges that have come up along the way. Just it working in this recent economic and overall environment of the past 2 years. A lot of supply chain issues and things like that. I wish we could have known that costs were going to increase the way they were, or that shipping containers were going to get stuck at the port and that deliveries were going to get delayed by weeks. So a lot of that just you can prepare as best you can, but some of that's just life shows up how it shows up.
That's right. Life shows up how it shows up. I'm going to have to remember that for when my teenagers start acting up.
So it's interesting to me when, life just happens, but because you have a good foundation set and because you've been planning for that bigger scale, are you able to be more resilient in some of the decisions that you're able to make?
I'd like to say yes, and we've scraped together solutions. We've never had a stock out for more than a week or anything like that, but there have definitely been plenty of moments of heartburn where we just found out that we're out of this and that the shipment that's supposed to come isn't coming, and we have to find a new supplier that we needed yesterday. Unfortunately, there have been a few more of those moments than I would have liked. But just being agile and being ready to adjust on the fly and making subtle changes because we're forced to. Just another example, we had an issue with the delivery of some packaging and had to just use some simpler packaging for a small run. And, it's not ideal. It's not the way we'd like to represent everything as perfectly as possible, but you have to just adjust on the fly and keep making it happen and cobble together solutions creatively.
It's awesome. Okay, so as we're wrapping up, Reed and I always finish these recordings with 2 questions. So I'll take the first, and then Reed will finish up. What is something that blows your mind? Something, it can be in your personal life. It could be something in work, in your journey with startup companies. We would just love to hear what's on your mind from a kind of wow perspective.
The thing that's been really difficult, mind-blowing has been kind of what I talked about there, was just the way that the world has changed in the past 2 years. And having started businesses previously, the number of curveballs that have come our way in starting a business in this environment, it's just a totally new world. And keeping up and trying to stay ahead has definitely been challenging. But I think, someone I used to work with used to always say, if it was easy, everybody would do it. So you got to just creatively find solutions, and you got to plan much further ahead than you used to, trying to, do just-in-time inventory and things like that. not really realistic right now when the supply chains are so unreliable. So that's definitely been a bit of a experience over the last year, just adjusting to a totally different environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've been talking with a lot of business leaders and consultants, and fundamentally they've all kind of said, we used to do a lot of business analysis and we still do a lot of business analysis. The difference is we don't look at any data prior to March 2020 because the world has just changed so much. It's what was predictable before is not predictable now. So they're focused on the last 2 years. It's very interesting. Very interesting. You make a great point. So the last question is, what's your favorite piece of technology? Personal, you use at work, just something you're just like, wow, this is like, I'm grooving with this. I really dig this technology right now.
Yeah, so we just rebuilt our website. It was about 2 years in, so it was time for a total refresh. And as part of that, we got really into a lot of the Shopify apps. Our whole website is built on Shopify, but there are so many cool apps now. And even 2 years ago when we built it, there were a lot less options for things like subscription and bundle management. So we've been having a lot of fun just adding all of these Shopify plugins and apps. And one that I've really been liking is AdRoll, which is basically AI for ad management for social media and various platforms. And I think it's just so cool how this platform can take data from existing customers and start to target and adjust the way we serve up ads in real time, just based on existing and then new data as we see what's converting, what's working, and continuing to just make adjustments constantly. So it's been kind of cool playing with some of those pieces.
That is really cool. You're one of the first of our guests to kind of bring this up. And I have a team that focuses just in on e-commerce and looking about the ins and outs. Liz, how many apps do you think Shopify offers today on their site? Just take a wild guess.
I mean, let's say 100. I have no idea.
6,000.
Oh.
6,000. And these range from everything from like shipping apps to tax apps to marketing to payments to like, everything. And it just blows my mind because if you think about it in the past, you needed to have relationships to get all this mind share. And now you can go to platforms and that's what's enabling our society to continue to grow so fast in the middle of a pandemic. Everyone's talking about the economic woes, which are going to happen. It's just kind of part of all history. We ebb and flow with economy growths and pullbacks and stuff. But we've said it numerous times on the show. If this pandemic happened in the 80s, we'd be in a Great Depression. But right now, because of things like Shopify apps and the internet and these technologies. So, well, Graham, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm a huge fan of your products. And for those of you that haven't gone to the website yet, I mean, there's sleepy chocolate, hot chocolate, sexy chocolate, which I have never been called in my life, but I have a couple friends that have been, energy chocolate, rhythm chocolate, brainy chocolate. There's some really cool things here. I love the health aspect, and there's so much more. So I'd encourage our listeners to go check you out. And I wish you the best of luck as you continue to grow your business. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks again so much for having me. It was great chatting.
Thank you for joining the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US. If you enjoyed today's show, you can subscribe to our feed or explore more great episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to share and follow us on social media. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.